Now I'll move on to the presentation side. I'd like to welcome Tony Sennett from Diamond Energy. Just to give you a bit of a background, Diamond Energy owns 2 biogas plants and develops other renewable energy generating assets, including wind and solar farms. And I'll actually let Tony tell the rest of the story. Thanks, Tony.
Well, firstly, thank you, Steve. It's been an interesting journey. Last time I was up here, I was talking about doing the effort of trying to raise capital, and then, of course, when you finish off the process and you now come back and talk from a perspective of, well, now we've raised the capital, becomes a slightly different story, and maybe I'll be a little bit more relaxed. So I will talk a little bit about Diamond Energy, our history, because it is an interesting kind of roadmap for investment in Australia, especially in the clean tech area. And then also talk a little bit about our beliefs and values and why our company, separates ourselves apart from some of the other players in the Australian energy market, and why is that different, and why would somebody want to invest in that? And then also, some of the axioms and what we believe is happening in the energy market. Hopefully, it's interesting. Well, I used to have to put this up, but we're not looking for any money, so I don't have to worry about my AFSL requirements. Now, the axioms. The energy market in Australia and the energy market globally is really changing. And when you set up a company and you've got to have a strategic view going forward, and especially where we were to get the investment, we really believed in a couple of key points. First of all, renewable energy is cheaper than coal. Now, a lot of people might say that's not the case, but hang on. The last few years, there's been a lot more money invested in in renewable generation around the world than in fossil fuel generation. In Australia, if you tried to build a coal plant now, you would not be able to get it off the ground. Nobody would finance it, and the market valuation would make it very, very difficult. Secondly, this is an important axiom, which is that grid is going to be the reserve supply for households, buildings, etc. We've just spent the last 50 years in Australia where the grid has been the only supply. But going forward, when delivered or distributed energy gets cheaper, then what is going to happen? People are going to use their own power first, and then they're going to use what they need or export the excess back to the grid. This requires a different business model, a different way of thinking. And thirdly, empowering your consumers or your customers to consume less is actually going to be a very advantaged business model. I like to say that people like to grow their own tomatoes, and when they do grow their own tomatoes, they don't like buying it down the street anymore. So you actually need a different model in the way you do that. As I said, we were formed in 2004. We now have retail licenses across the whole eastern seaboard. I could talk to you about the politics that's going on in that little space at the moment and the angles that are being played by the various state parties. We own our own renewable energy generation. We started off building our own assets. Okay, head office in Melbourne. We did over 3,500 solar installations ourselves. We've now got thousands of customers. We've now got over half a dozen different generation assets across the country. As I said, we're an independent gen tailer, so we create our own renewable energy and we sell it to our retail customers. And ideally, they're solar customers, so they're only customers that got solar panels on their roof, and because they produce their own, and we supply the material over and around that. So here's the road, which is quite interesting from an investor perspective. We started off in 2004 with a small amount of personal equity and a lot of personal sweat. We managed to get our first generation asset built in Tatura, which is a biogas plant, thanks to the Victorian government, a bit of renewable energy support funding. Of course, when we developed that, we couldn't get a PPA, we couldn't get a price. It's a very closed market. Luckily for ourselves, we already had existing licenses and approvals in Singapore, and we managed to lever that into the Australian market. So we turned that plant on. We got a private investor, an angel investor, to come in 2008. We then extended our capacity, built Shepparton. We then got a VC fund, which was actually Lend-Lease Venture Capital, came in and took an investment stake in the company. And then we moved on. We extended our retail reach, We took a very strategic view on where the market's going. We then took some more. Another company made an investment in early 2012. Unfortunately, that had a bit of Chinese money behind it, and that kind of evaporated. Caused us a whole host of problems. And then finally, as announced by SunPower a matter of about a month or so ago, SunPower took up 40% of the company. So they took out all of the previous investors. They solved a few of our problems, and Total took a strategic investment in what we really are is a very small generation retailer. But for a company that's a major developer of solar panels and a major developer of grid integrated solar facilities, strategically what we represent is a lot more than what they could get, and they couldn't deal with the other major incumbents. So for a relatively small investment, they took out all my other partners, left myself and them to work together. SunPower is quite a good partner from our perspective, because not only are they a $1 billion company, but they're also 60+% owned by Total Repsol, which is about the 15th largest company in the world. So significantly, what this is an investment by a US corporate into a very small Australian company, and it's probably about the first time that we've actually seen a solar manufacturer get all the way through to into the customers' homes. It's really important. SunPower have about 40% of the US Californian market at the moment for solar, and they're doing that on the back of some very well structured, financed leasing projects. So just look for the change in the space. Remember the axioms I talked about earlier? It's now developing, and we're moving forward. As a side note, Australia is in a very interesting position. We represent the front line of the solar battle, somewhere between the Chinese investors, which have got a large amount of solar panels, and they're trying to export. We've got a lot of roofs, we've got a lot of customers, we've got a lot of sun, and the American market, American Europeans, that are also looking, and this is where the battle's occurring. So what you'll see in Australia is a rapid fall in that solar market. Wary of time, Steve. Just give me a wind up if I need to. Can't stop talking. What's interesting about the business model? We own our own generation assets. We've done a lot of other development in generation. We've got a wave farm that we've got PPA rights to that we started and developed and then sold off. We've got some other projects. We've seen the market from what it takes to develop projects, and soon you'll be listening to Wizard Power, and they'll tell you about some of the issues in developing projects. But more importantly, we've actually mapped this out and have got the integration between the retail space and the other side. This is a little bit about solar for those people that are interested in seeing where the market's going. Cost of solar is falling dramatically. Anybody with cost curve numbers would know that the cost of solar is falling on average about 24%, i.e. every doubling of cumulative production, we're seeing a 24% decline. It's falling faster than LCD TVs on a delivered watt basis. If you start plotting that out and you look at where the cost of power is going in Australia and the cost of solar, that red line over there will tell you that people are suddenly very interested with paybacks approaching 3 or 4 years, in the very near future, 2013, 14. And the technology, the double efficiency and some of the technologies that are coming to market is really going to, link back to those axioms that we started off at. As I said, Diamond Energy, we're the solar-friendly retailer. We believe in getting customers, allowing them to produce a little bit more and allowing them to get out to market. Our catch line is we generate change. It's really good because we only get certain customers that also want to generate change. They're the small guys at the front end of the curve, but eventually, once you say people generating change, eventually the mass market usually follows. I was going to talk a little bit about the generation market in Australia. I think the key things is that get away from all the rhetoric, and there is a RET review on at the moment, but there is still a major need for about 41 million megawatt hours of electricity generated by renewable energy in Australia. Still has bipartisan support, needs to be in place by 2020, and if you back calculate that means it's about 10,000 megawatts. Okay, 10 kind of Loy Yang type style facilities that needs to go into this country and needs to be built over the next probably around that next 5 to 7 years. There will be a lot of investment in this space. This is just a photograph of our first generator at Tatura. That big kind of tall looking thing on the left is actually a gas scrubber. Bit of our own engineering went into that. Kept me awake a couple of weekends trying to design it. A good example of where things go wrong, you go ahead and build it, and then all of a sudden when you actually get running, you discover that all the gas assays they've been giving you for the last 2 years have been wrong. So had to go back and do a bit of re-engineering on that one, Steve. This is the biopower wave project, which I know that has also presented, I think, and has now received in excess of $10 million of government finance. And that facility, which we developed, the first site down at Port Fairy, the first 250 kilowatt units due to go in early next year. And there's a few other ones as well. So as I said, the new world axioms are almost here. Be part of the transformation. And if you'd like to come along as one of our customers or just work with us, we'd like to generate change. Thank you very much.